Space politics begins on the ground. The rocket gets the glory. The pad holds the power. A spaceport looks like concrete, fuel tanks, roads, gates, hangars, antennas, and angry birds with lawyers. In reality, it is a border crossing between Earth and orbit. Whoever controls that crossing controls access, cadence, inspection, delay, insurance, range safety, military priority, and industrial clustering. That is the bottom line up front. Spaceports are the ports, arsenals, railheads, and customs houses of the space age. They decide who reaches orbit, how often, under whose rules, and under whose protection. Orbit may be the ocean, but the spaceport is the harbor. And every empire that ever mattered learned this lesson with wet boots and tariffs. The United States now treats launch capacity as a strategic asset. The FAA says its Office of Spaceports exists to develop policy for infrastructure improvements and to strengthen U.S. competitiveness in commercial space transportation. That bureaucratic sentence hides a hard fact. Launch sites are becoming national power nodes. Concrete has joined satellites in the order of battle. The first layer is geography. A launch site is a negotiation with physics. Earth rotates eastward. Launching east gives a rocket a free shove from the planet. Near the equator, that shove is strongest. That is why equatorial sites matter. French Guiana gives Europe a powerful geographic advantage. Florida gives the United States an eastward launch corridor over the Atlantic. Texas gives commercial launch firms room, coastline, and political muscle. Vandenberg gives polar and sun-synchronous orbits over the Pacific. Every spaceport is built inside a geometry problem. A rocket does more than rise. It drops stages. It sheds debris. It may explode. It needs a corridor where falling hardware lands in water, desert, tundra, or empty range space. The public hears launch window. The operator hears weather, airspace closures, maritime warnings, range scheduling, trajectory clearance, environmental review, and insurance exposure. A rocket launch is a parade of permissions with fire at the end. That makes spaceports political machines. The second layer is sovereignty. A nation with its own launch site can put payloads into orbit on its own schedule. A nation relying on foreign launch sites must ask for access. That request may be friendly, it may be commercial, it may be cheap. It still creates dependency. Europe understands this. Sweden's S-Range Space Center, along with new European launch efforts in Norway, the United Kingdom, and Portugal, reflects a larger European push for strategic autonomy in space access. The AP described S-Range as part of Europe's effort to compete in the space race and reduce reliance on outside launch options. This is the quiet grammar of space politics. A sovereign launch site gives a country room to move during crisis. It can launch reconnaissance satellites after an attack. It can replace communications capacity. It can test missile warning payloads. It can support allied missions. It can deny adversaries a clean picture of its timing and priority. A rented ride works during peace. In crisis, rented rides become awkward. The landlord may have opinions. Landlords often do. It is one of their less charming hobbies. The third layer is military power. Spaceports are dual use by nature. The same pad that launches a weather satellite can launch a military communications satellite. The same tracking range that supports commercial rockets can support national security payloads. The same horizontal runway that attracts spaceplane firms can support rapid logistics, hypersonic testing, or re-entry operations. This creates friction. Civil agencies want predictable licensing. Commercial firms want speed. Local politicians want jobs. Environmental groups want review. The military wants priority access, range security, and resilience. Each actor sees the same pad through a different lens. For Space Force, a spaceport is a node in a kill chain and a logistics chain. It supports launch, reconstitution, warning, telemetry, tracking, command, and recovery. If adversary action blinds satellites, the ability to replace capacity fast becomes a form of deterrence. That is why launch cadence matters. The Aerospace Corporation reported that the United States conducted nearly 200 orbital launches in 2025, roughly 9 times the number from 10 years earlier, with forecasts projecting the number could more than double by 2030. This changes the meaning of a launch range. During the old model, launches were national spectacles. During the new model, launches become industrial rhythm. SpaceX made cadence the central weapon. Rocket Lab turned small launch into scheduled service. Blue Origin, ULA, Firefly, and others sit inside the same race. The country that launches weekly has a different strategic posture than the country that launches annually. The factory matters. The pad matters more when the factory gets fast. The fourth layer is regulation. Spaceports live under overlapping authority. In the United States, the FAA licenses commercial launch and re-entry activity. Federal ranges such as Cape Canaveral and Vandenberg involve military range control. State agencies court companies. Local governments handle land, roads, emergency response, and zoning. Environmental law shapes construction and launch activity. Coastal rules matter because rockets love coastlines, and coastlines attract lawsuits like porch lights attract moths. Regulation can protect the public. It can also turn launch into paperwork archaeology. The FAA's Part 450 framework allows one license to cover a portfolio of operations, vehicle configurations, mission profiles, and multiple launch or re-entry sites. In March 2026, FAA noted that major operators had transitioned legacy licenses under this framework. That is more than red tape reform. It is cadence policy. A licensing system built for rare launches becomes a choke point when rockets fly every week. A licensing system built for regular operations gives the state a stronger hand in the launch market. Law becomes infrastructure. A lawyer with a PDF can delay a rocket more effectively than a thunderstorm, which is almost unfair to the thunderstorm. The fifth layer is economics. A spaceport sells more than launch pads. It sells land, tax incentives, power, water, roads, fiber, security, nearby suppliers, skilled labor, and political access. The best spaceports become industrial towns with rocket plumbing. Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center anchor Florida's space economy. Vandenberg anchors national security and polar launch. Wallops supports NASA, defense, and commercial missions through the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport. Spaceport America sells desert range space and purpose-built commercial capacity. Kodiak in Alaska gives high-latitude options. Texas has turned Boca Chica into a symbol of private launch power, with all the glamour and civic headaches that follow when giant rockets move into a beach town. Spaceports create jobs. They also create blast zones, traffic closures, noise, land fights, wildlife disputes, and political resentment. The local diner may love the engineers. The local fisherman may curse the exclusion zone. Both live inside the same launch economy. This is why spaceport politics often looks small before it becomes strategic. A county commissioner arguing about road access may be shaping the future of orbital logistics. A coastal board debating habitat protection may alter national launch cadence. A state grant for a runway may pull a hypersonics company away from another region. Petty local process becomes grand strategy wearing cheap shoes. The sixth layer is monopoly risk. Launch capacity concentrates, pads concentrate, skilled range staff concentrate, flight safety systems concentrate, ground infrastructure concentrates. The result can be a de facto monopoly even where many firms exist on paper. A company with rockets but no pad has a schedule problem. A nation with satellites but no launch corridor has a sovereignty problem. An ally with payloads but no domestic spaceport has a dependency problem. A military with urgent reconstitution needs and crowded ranges has a warfighting problem. The Wall Street Journal reported growing congestion at U.S. rocket launch sites in Florida and California as SpaceX and other firms increased activity, creating concern about delays from weather, accidents, and range limits. Congestion is strategic friction. A launch pad can become the narrow bridge in the campaign. If one accident shuts down a range, payloads wait. If one company dominates pad access, competitors wait. If one region carries too much launch burden, weather and local politics gain leverage. Resilience requires distributed launch. That means more spaceports, more pads, more mobile support systems, faster range clearance, and better coordination between civil and military operators. It also means accepting that every new spaceport creates local opposition. The space age has entered the zoning hearing. Majesty has a clipboard now. The seventh layer is international competition. China understands spaceports as state power. Its launch sites support military, civil, and commercial aims under a centralized national strategy. Russia's Baikonur dependence after the Soviet collapse showed the danger of launch geography outside direct national control. Vostochny exists because Moscow wanted a launch site on Russian soil, even if Russian procurement turned the project into a tragic opera with concrete. India uses Sriharikota as a national asset. Japan uses Tanegashima and Uchinura. Europe relies heavily on French Guiana while building new continental options. Australia wants to turn geography into advantage. The United Kingdom has pushed vertical and horizontal launch ambitions. Every serious space actor eventually reaches the same conclusion. Sovereign space power needs sovereign ground access. The eighth layer is the next decade. Spaceports will become more specialized. Some will serve heavy-lift rockets. Some will handle small launch. Some will focus on polar orbits. Some will support re-entry. Some will become hypersonic test ranges. Some will chase spaceplanes and find out that horizontal launch has a gift for eating budgets and smiling afterward. The next fight will center on cadence, re-entry, and military priority. Launch is only half the story. Re-entry will matter as manufacturing, cargo return, defense payloads, and crewed missions increase. A nation that can send hardware up and bring material down has a stronger industrial base. Orbital manufacturing needs Earthside recovery. Space logistics needs ports in both directions. That turns spaceports into customs houses for the orbital economy. Cargo will need inspection. Sensitive payloads will need secure handling. Foreign customers will need export control review. Re-entry debris will need tracking. Military missions will need compartmented support. Commercial operators will demand faster processing. Local residents will demand answers when sonic booms rattle the windows. The politics will intensify because the stakes will become visible. For years, space felt abstract. Satellites were overhead and out of mind. Spaceports changed that. They put the space economy in counties, state budgets, environmental hearings, labor markets, and coastal disputes. Space politics moves from treaty rooms to county roads. That is the lesson. Spaceports are where astropolitics touches dirt. They decide whether a nation can reach orbit under pressure. They decide whether a company can scale. They decide whether allies can rely on each other. They decide whether space power remains ceremonial or becomes operational. The rocket is the spear. The spaceport is the hand that throws it. Over the next 10 years, the world will learn which nations built launch capacity as strategy and which nations treated it as a ribbon-cutting ceremony with better catering. The answer will shape who controls orbit, who rents access to it, and who stands at the gate while others climb. The next briefing follows that gate upward, because once a rocket leaves the pad, the politics move into orbit.